What's up, guys? It's Anime What If Media, and today we're gonna be doing a Don Manchi What If. If you guys don't know who's in that photo, some people will be wondering, wait, isn't that just Belle? Then sorry, mistake, but this person's Argonaut, like the original Argonaut. And how Belle's gonna be getting having the powers of the original Argonaut, you're gonna see later on to the story. Now, this what if is called What If Belle Had Argonaut's Powers, basically. So, let's get started. Long time ago, back in the world of Gaia, there's a small boy with his grandfather. His grandfather is telling him the story of Argonaut, the fool, the clown, who tried to save the princess, but was betrayed and mistrusted, and led to basically been talked down to by everybody else, and eventually the princess ended up saving him. But he ends up becoming the first hero ever. And Belle was wondering, how did Argonaut get all this power before the gods were even there? Did he get some sort of fauna or something? He asked his grandfather, really curious. And his grandfather says no. He got his power from the spirit Jupiter. He's a spirit. It's a spirit under the god Zeus. Then Belle thinking I want to be a hero. Why don't I find the spirit Jupiter? Then Belle says, when I get older enough, I'm gonna find the spirit Jupiter and X to have similar powers to Argonaut. Then with that, I could probably become an adventurer and become a hero. His grandfather just chuckles at Belle, saying, if you do, you'll probably be the best hero ever. And that is how the start of this what if is gonna happen. Now 2 years later, Belle, at the age of 10, his grandfather just died recently. And during his death, he was crying. But then he had a dream where he talked to his grandfather. His grandfather told him to become an adventurer, become the hero, and get a harem. And also tell him that if you still want to get the same power as Argonaut, Jupiter is 2 mountains away from our village, if you want to know. And Belle was confused, is this a dream or something? When he wakes up. So he decides, I'll go to that mountain, because you know where that mountain is. He goes to the mountain, then he calls out, Jupiter, great spirit Jupiter, I come ask you a question. Then the spirit Jupiter comes out and says, young one, why are you here? And the spirit, Belle says, I want to become a hero, and it's told that Argonaut came to you for his power, and the spirit says, that is true, but he did some trials before he was able to gain my power. Are you willing to go trials of yourself? Then Belle says, yes, I will. And just for those, pause in the middle, just for those who don't know, there's still monsters outside of the dungeon, but they're really weak compared to monsters inside the dungeon. Alright, resume. The spirit says you had to defeat a party of goblins, which is 7 goblins. And I'll show you the nest. If you're able to defeat them, I'll give you the power that I gave to Argonaut. Now, Belle finds the goblins party, and he basically has like a sword, just basically a normal sword, and starts like trying to defeat the goblins. He was able to defeat some of it. Now, when it comes to the last one, it was kind of getting difficult, but he was able to defeat it. Now, the spirit was impressed. A 10-year-old able to basically defeat a party of goblins without a foul, no less. And he decides to give Belle his blessing. Once he does that, Belle gets the tire that you see here. And it grows with him, so don't worry, he'd be having this drip, honestly. Now he says this blade, just like the blade is called Jupiter. The blade is called Jupiter, young Colonel. And while I was just giving you power, I did notice something. You look exactly like Argonaut. The white hair, red eyes. And I figured out something. You are related to Argonaut. So technically, this is kind of like a family thing. And Belle was shocked. Like, he was related to the first hero, Argonaut. Like, honestly, he was like, wow. So he was like honestly happy to know that Argonaut was his ancestor. So he decided to he asked the spirit to train him how to use his powers. Now, I'm gonna go real quick to check on my notebook to see the abilities that Argonaut has before I continue this. Now that I came back from my notebook, I'm getting this information from a website, so don't come at me. So during the 2 years of basically trading with Jupiter, Jupiter was able to hold on to Belle's Argonaut's other weapon, the Minodin. Minodin was the first magic sword that the first Krazo made that didn't break either. And that ability has him to produce fire with it. The Jupiter also taught Belle fire and lightning magic. And during that time, the spirit Jupiter taught him how to wield it properly without no bad side effects. So basically, he trained his body so he doesn't have any bad side effects while wielding it. Now he's at the age of 14. He just turned 14. And his time with Jupiter has basically ended. Now, Jupiter is the spirit of the solar, so Jupiter basically goes inside his mind and tells him to make sure you find like a good familia and a one that will actually treat you right. You should not wear all your armor and see if a familia is a good one. And don't aim too high. Try to find like mid ground. If you do, you probably find a familia. Now he goes to Ohio, gets registered. He has a ton of money, so he pays for the permanent residency. He gets some snacks on the way. So he goes to search for some familias, and all of them basically said, nah, you look too weak. But about his physique, even though he looks weak, he can hold a lot more. He's like one of those people, he has like a lean physical. I'm gonna watch that later. Gonna turn this off for now. He has like that lean fit, so he still kind of looks scrawny, even though he's strong, like strong. So most of the familias didn't, most of the mid-tier familias didn't even give him a chance. So he goes to some low-tier familias, and they still didn't give him a chance. So he goes to the inn, stays there for now. The next day, he goes to the guild. Due to Jupiter's advice, he goes to the guild and asks someone, is there like a familia that I could join? I already tried searching yesterday and I still couldn't find any. And Miss Anna, yeah, she's still his guild advisor. She says, what about this familia and that familia? He found the familia list. He started checking off all the ones that he already went to. And once he showed it to Anna was surprised. Like, honestly, most of these familias are ones that she would have recommended him to, but they didn't pick him up. And she even saw that he went to like low tier familias, the ones that actually need familiar members. And they still haven't picked it up. And that kind of bothered Anna a little bit. And this person, even though, and she says it's probably because you're scrawny build. Then Belle said, that's genetically, even though I look scrawny, I could probably pick up 2 tons with no much effort. And Anna was surprised and like, what? Yeah, everybody in my family, even though they look scrawny, they could pick up a lot if you train. It's just how my body looks like. And she was like, oh, sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. And he said it's alright. But I did have some outside experience. I know magic and was trained since I was 10 years old how to wield a weapon. So can I at least just go to the dungeon like the first 2 floors? And Ada says, let me see your skills then. He says, alright. He summons up his armor and Ada's surprised, like, oh, you weren't kidding that you knew magic. And he says, yeah. If I wore this armor, some of the familiars might have chose me, but I want to find like an actual good familia. So it was kind of like a test to see if either the familia will actually are a right fit for me. And she thinks that's kind of damn smart. But then she noticed like some of these high tier familias he didn't try. And she asks like, why didn't you try to check out for the high tier ones? And he said, I'm trying to be realistic and try to find the mid-tier ones, probably. There's a small chance, like a really small chance that they won't accept me. But she says, we'll try out one of the big familias after I see your skills. He shows him his sword. He shows him his swordsman skills and stuff, and she sees that he's moving like a level 5, even though he has no Falna. Really fast and all that. And he showed his magic, Fireball, Electric Murder, one of his lightning attacks. Then Flame Destroyer, one of his fire attacks, which I just made. Alright. And she's like, wow, I think you could go up to the 5th floor with those type of skills. And he says, alright, I'll go to the dungeon. He goes to the dungeon. He goes, 1st floor, easy. 2nd floor, easy. 3rd floor, easy. 4th floor, easy. 5th floor, it's easy. Like, all these are easy. He's basically on level 5 strength. It's just that he hasn't been officially in a Familia yet, so she can't really make him go further deep down. So that's all he goes to. Now he's done defeating his opponent, and then he sees a Minotaur. Instantly he grabs his Minodin and be like, yeah, no, not today. He gets his Minodin, starts defeating that Minotaur like it was nothing. And then he uses a fire wave and destroys it. And then grabs the core. He goes back up. And I sees him. And she saw how his armor disappeared. Like, what? And he sees like his magic sword did not break. Like, what? He said, even Bet saw this and was like, whoa, he seems familiar, because Bet, one of his ancestors, used to be one of Argonaut's friends, if you guys didn't know. But anyways, he goes back to the guild. He tells Anna everything, and Anna is not that surprised. His skills, even though he's not he doesn't have a Falna, is comparable to level 5. Hearing him defeat a Minotaur with his Minodin, and she's like, Minodin? Isn't that Argonaut? Oh, and he's like, honest. He screwed up. So he acts to like basically talk to her in private, and she says, alright. And he said, yeah, I'm Argonaut's descendant, so I have his weapons and armor. It's just that his armor and weapons have been polished, so I'm basically using his old gear. And Anna hearing this, like, what? Like, he has this type of weapon? No wonder why. Weapon and armor? No wonder why his skills are close to level 5. His family are probably the only people. His family and some other families are the only people related to heroes back then. Could be like comparable to high levels, even though they have no Falna. But after that, the next day comes. He goes to a guild called the Parthenon. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, he goes to the Parthenon. And him and Anna goes to a high tier Familia type of thing. So she asks if they're gonna fall to goddess Loki. Now he heads to Loki Familia with Ina just to see if he could join. And he does not have his armor on. He just has like a civilian's clothes without the armor. And he be walking in. And once he gets there, he sees a man and a goddess with red hair. And yes, even without seeing them, mortals could tell who's a god or a goddess just by the aura. So that's probably the goddess Loki he's thinking. So they'd be out there waiting for participants, and Anna greets them and says, "Here's someone who's looking to join the familiars. He hasn't tried any mid-tier familiars or high-tier familiars, so he decided to check this one." And Loki Familia be like, "Alright, but he looks scrawny," and Anna says, "Don't let looks deceive you. He's stronger than he looks. He's one of those people that I gave permission to go to the dungeon even without a Familia." And them hearing this, like, okay. We'll test you then to see if you actually deserve to be in this Familia. So they go to the captain, Finn. Finn says, "Alright, we're supposed to test you." And they're in the backyard, some of the executives, even Eyes and Bet, they see Bell and they know he has no Familia and he's able to do. So they're about to give Bell like a weapon. He says, "Nah, I got my own weapon." And he's like, "Where?" He says, he summons up his armor and weapons. He's like, "On me." And they were like surprised, like, magic. And he says, "Yes, I was trained before coming here. That's how I was able to go to the dungeon without a Familia." And they were like intrigued, but they decided to test him. They be fighting, and Bell surprising them with his speed and strength without no Familia. He's keeping up. And he's fighting with both Jupiter and Minodin, like dual swords, dual longsword style. Just be fighting. He's keeping up. He's basically keeping up. And then, after basically like 5 minutes, she's like, "Alright, you can join. You're strong. And then he joins the Familia. And like all new adventurers, no matter what you did before, and I'm telling this to all YouTubers, if you guys didn't know, no matter what you did previously, if you're first time getting a Familia, it always starts at 0. No matter who you are or what type of training you did beforehand. Just let you know. It's all 0 no matter what. So, that's a proven fact. So, I kind of get bothered when some YouTubers just like, when Bell just gets like a broken number at the beginning. Alright. But anyways, he decides to go to the dungeon solo. He'd be going down floors, defeating monsters left and right, basically destroying them. And he goes to like the 10th floor. He starts to fight minotaurs, and he decides to use Minodin, basically destroying monsters left and right. Bro, honestly, it's not even funny. All the minotaurs are scared of him. He's basically using his Minodin, basically using his fire to destroy all the monsters. And he used some magic attack so he could get some improvements in magic. He goes back. He goes inside the guild, exchanges monster cores, and he gets like around 3 million values. First try. And Anna says, like, "How far did you go?" He says 10th floor. It's alright. I've been destroying my minotaurs. Destroying lots of minotaurs. And she's like, oh, okay. She's trying to hold in her laugh because she knows she knows that Argonaut's main enemy was a Minotaur, and he's be destroying, and his descendant is be destroying Minotaurs easily. But anyways, he goes back to his goddess points his stats, and they bumped all the way to sea. All skills at sea. And she's like, damn, what did you do? And he's like, went to the 10th floor, destroying Minotaurs left and right. And she was like, how can you do that? And he said, why Minodin? Because he knows that he can't lie to goddesses and gods. Minodin, isn't that the weapon of Argonaut? Yeah, Jupiter gave them to me. Actually, he's in my head right now. And this is the sword he has. He can materialize and talk to you and stuff. So Jupiter materialized. He greets Loki and stuff, like, yeah, he's the new master. And plus he's the descendant of Argonaut, so yeah. And one of his skills are anti-army. Basically, he got like some skills. A skill called anti-army. Basically, whenever he's fighting an army of monsters or army of people, with the power of Jupiter, he basically has the power of one army and basically destroys them easily. The next ability that he has is Argonaut, just like in the Canon series. And Lear's Freeze, because this is will to become a hero. Now, we're done with his first time in a dungeon with Familia. I'm gonna leave it all for right now. Bye.